Bar Bet is a bit of a bonkers Cheers episode, but it works really well and I really thoroughly enjoy it. This is the 18th episode of the third season of Cheers, directed, of course, by the wonderful James Burrows. And there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode, pretty much chronologically. But something that I want to mention first, that's maybe the only not cheerful thing about this, is that Nicholas Colasanto isn't in this episode. We don't have any coach. He is mentioned. He also phones Sam up at one point. Of course, we don't hear Coach's side of the conversation, but obviously with Colasanto's health problems, I think it's fair to say, I don't know this for certain, but I assume or imagine he wasn't in this due to health reasons, and it's not nice to not have Coach around. I just wanted to get that said and out of the way, because it's not exactly a positive topic, and I felt his absence. I think he would have brought a really great amount of humour to this. But that's not to say it's not a funny episode. It definitely is. And it starts off brilliantly with Norm and Cliff arguing about Ibsen and Chekhov. And why they're arguing is unclear, and Diane steps in, asks if she can help because she's really excited that Norm and Cliff are having what she thinks is an intellectual debate. And it turns out that it was not the case. And I just thought it was a really entertaining opening, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Then we get in with the main narrative, and this is really the only story in this episode. Sometimes Cheers will have a main plot and a subplot, and sometimes we just have the main narrative, and that's absolutely fine, and this is the case here, and it works really well. We find out that a year ago, Sam made a bet with a character called Eddie Gordon, played by Michael Richards, and Sam doesn't remember this guy. It's when he was starting to drink again, and apparently, and there is evidence to prove it, he made a bet with Eddie Gordon that within the year he would marry he would marry somebody called Jacqueline Bisset. There's a reason why I specified somebody there, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And it's almost a year, and if he doesn't marry Jacqueline Bisset, according to this contract or bet that they made, this wager, he has to forfeit the bar to this Eddie Gordon. And the wonderful Tom takes a look at this bet. Tom, played, of course, by Thomas Babson. I think Tom is a brilliant character, and we don't get to see enough of him, but when he's in it, it's always so much fun. And the fact that Cliff makes so many jokes at his expense, I feel like it's the only person Cliff can make jokes at. It's the only person where Cliff feels superior, because everybody else seems to be higher in the pecking order than Cliff. And I hope that makes sense when I say that, but I feel like Cliff can't really make jokes to everybody else because they make jokes at his expense. But Cliff can make jokes at Tom's expense, which is a shame on one hand because I really like Tom, but also it's very funny. Tom isn't able to come to a definite conclusion, so Sam realizes the only thing he can do, because he's not willing to go to court and testify and say that he was drunk when he made this bet, because he doesn't want there to be any press coverage of his drinking, the only thing he can do is marry Jacqueline Bisset. Now, the reason that I said it was important that I specified it was somebody called Jacqueline Bisset is that they do at least conclude that in the bet, in the written contract, I guess, they never mention the actor. Just the name Jacqueline Bisset. And everybody at Cheers starts trying to find somebody with the name Jacqueline Bisset. And they find somebody and bring her to Boston, and she's really lovely. She's played by Laurie Walters, and obviously she doesn't really want to marry Sam. She's kind of lured there under false pretenses. I think you need to suspend disbelief a little bit for her getting to Boston, but nevertheless, they bring her there, and Sam takes her on the tour of Boston, and there are a lot of really great things to celebrate about Boston. We don't actually learn that much about Boston history, but we learn that Boston has a lot to offer in this episode, and of course, the hope is that Sam will be able to convince her to marry him. And of course, the plan is to marry her and then get an annulment the next day. Whether or not she does that, I think is pretty unclear what direction it's going to take. I will say the ending maybe feels like a a tiny bit of a cop out. Not that I think there could have been a better resolution, because I can't personally think of something else. It wouldn't have worked if he'd married her. It would have just been too bizarre. But at the same time, I can't think of another way out of it. So I'm contradicting myself by saying that I didn't love the way it ended, but I can't think of a better ending. If you have any ideas for how you think it should have played out, or how it could have played out differently, I'd love to know if anybody has any other suggestions. But the whole giving him an olive, giving Eddie an olive, and that's that, from Sam's perspective, a pretty great way to end things. But from a viewing perspective, it felt a little bit flat. But other than that, I think the episode played out really, really well. Loved the bit at the end with Diane and Jacqueline bonding over the fact that they both think Sam loves himself, and then, of course, Jacqueline making fun of the type of girls who would go for him, not realizing Diane is, in Sam's words, the little filly he used to date. And definitely a really fun episode. It is a bizarre narrative. It is. It's really bonkers, but it works really well, and I had a lot of fun with it, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I do miss Coach's presence in this episode, but other than that, Barbette is a pretty fun and fabulous episode.